Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today we're making tteokbokki, or Korean rice cakes. To start this dish, I have 2 cups of short grain or sweet rice in a large bowl, and we need to rinse off as much of that surface starch as possible. You can see how cloudy this water is, so I'm just going in with my hands and rubbing these grains together to encourage some of that starch to come off. Now we have to repeat this process, drain the cloudy water, add clean water until we get a relatively clean run of water, and this took me about 10 times, but it's going to depend on the brand of rice that you're using. Once you've reached a state of clear-ish water, or as clear as you think it's going to get, drain that bit out. Then we're going to cover this with clean water until everything is perfectly submerged. We're going to cover this with a lid, pop it in the fridge, and let it rest for 24 hours. Now it is the next day. I've drained the rice. You see it's gotten a little plumper, and when you go in and press it with your nails, it should crack open pretty easily. Now we're going to make flour out of this rice, and of course we're not going to be able to drain every single piece. We want to get off any of that excess moisture as much as we can. So I'm just laying down a clean tea towel and laying out all of our beautiful plump little rice kernels or grains. And then I'm going to take some paper towels or another clean tea towel, up to you, and we're going to start blotting this off. And we want to get, again, as much of the moisture off as we can. We're not going to get every single grain, but that is okay. So to make the flour, we need to grind this in batches. You can use a high-powered blender or a food processor, whatever you have on hand, but you want to do this in batches so you don't burn out your engine of your machine. After we've blended in batches, we are going to strain this because inevitably we're going to get pieces that didn't grind up as finely. So once we strain them through and you have those larger pieces still in your strainer, pop those back into your blender or food processor and reblend them, because we don't want any of these to go to waste. And you can see this beautiful rice flour forming right in front of our eyes. I've never made these before, so I'm really excited to do this today. You can see I switched to a larger bowl because I notoriously always pick a bowl that's too small. And it is definitely a flour. So now that everything is ground down, we're going to add in 1/2 teaspoon of kosher salt and 1 cup of boiling water. This is going to help form this beautiful chewiness to our rice cake. And it is going to look kind of like spackle as we're mixing it, but trust me, it's going to look a little better once we steam it and we go through the whole process. This is a very, very sticky dough, so I don't recommend touching it with my hands unless you have a little water or oil on your hand. Now, once we've achieved our spackle, we're going to lay down a piece of parchment and tip out all of our rice dough onto this. On the stove, I have a pot large enough to hold my steamer basket, because we're going to have to steam this dough to get our rice cake dough to a point of consumption. So just popping that onto the parchment. And now I'm going to use the aid of the parchment paper, because again, this is very sticky, just to start forming this into a shape that's going to fit into my actual steamer basket itself. So just going to pop that in the steamer basket, cover this with the lid, and we're going to let this steam for 25 minutes. While our rice cake dough is steaming, we can work on our sauce, because we aren't just making the rice cakes themselves, we're going to make a little meal. So I have 3 cloves of garlic, giving them a gentle little smash, and then a nice little choppity chop up into a fine little mince. Once that's all minced up, I'm adding this 3 tablespoons of gochujang sauce, which is Korean chili pepper paste. We're going to add 4 teaspoons of sesame oil, 4 to 6 tablespoons of Korean pepper flake or gochugara. I'm sorry, 4 to 6 teaspoons, 2 tablespoons of soy sauce, and 2 tablespoons of sugar. Now, this is a relatively spicy sauce, so if you want to cut down the spiciness, cut the gochugara and the gochujang by half. All of the ingredients for this are listed below in the description. Now it's been 25 minutes. The rice cake dough is fully steamed, I'm just putting on some gloves and laying down a piece of parchment. I have a half of a teaspoon of toasted sesame, and I don't want it to absorb into my workbench because then the next time I go to cut onions, I'm just going to taste sesame oil. It's very strong. We can tip out all of our beautifully steamed dough. And this is hot, so be careful. Your best friends are going to be a bench scraper and a pounding tool. So we have to go in and pound this for about 5 minutes. This is kind of like making mochi. This is going to give that beautiful chewiness to our rice cakes. The sesame oil is going to help it from sticking to your parchment or your workbench if that's what you choose to use. Now after 5 minutes, we're going to cut this into 8 equal portions. Now, you can definitely buy rice cakes from a grocery store. They usually come frozen, or if you get them from Amazon, they come vacuum packed. But with the state of the world, my anxiety level was getting so high that I needed to do something to get my mind off of it. And I find when I'm stressed out or things seem out of control, cooking and drawing are the two things that help me center my mind and focus. And that's how I came to do this recipe today. So with that remaining toasted sesame oil, I'm just rubbing my hands with it. And we're going to start rolling each of these sections out into an even log. If you wanted to do the coin-shaped rice cakes, you would roll it into a thicker log, let it sit for about 15 minutes, and then just go in and cut it on the bias to get those coin-shaped rice cakes. So once we have this rolled out to about 8 inches, I'm just cutting this into quarters. And if you wanted to be super fancy, you could cut off the ends so everything is nice and even, but I like that rustic look to the unevenness of this. It just shows that it's homemade. So this is the last portion, just rolling this out, pressing from the middle outwards, and this helps keep that log pretty even. Cutting in half, and then cutting in half again until we have 4 nice little pieces here. Rubbing the sesame oil on your hands keeps the rice cakes from sticking together. So about 1.5 pounds of rice cakes now. Now let's do something with them. So I've been heating up my pot on high heat, adding in 2 tablespoons of vegetable oil, and I want to pan fry these tteokbokki. They're so delicious when they're crispy on the outside and super chewy on the inside. I'm going for a drier sauce here, so we're kind of frying everything. I'm just going to cook these in batches. It doesn't take very long for these to get nice and golden on the outside. You could bypass this step completely. It's perfectly fine to eat once it's steamed. Once everything is nicely golden brown, I'm going to add in that sauce we just made. And we're going to stir fry this around until it coats all of our beautiful little rice cakes. If you find that your pan is getting a little dry, just add in a tablespoon of water at this point. Now, traditional rice cakes are served with like fish cakes and an anchovy broth or a dashi broth, but I just wanted something simple that everyone could do. So after about 5 minutes of cooking, I'm just popping this all into one big bowl. We're going to garnish this with a little chopped scallion and a little black sesame. Now these are usually eaten with a toothpick, so that's what we're doing today. The rice cakes are crispy on the outside and beautiful and chewy on the inside. You get that heat from the gochujang and the gochugara, the sweetness from the sugar that we added, and the saltiness from that soy sauce. This is a perfect snack for any time, and it is exactly what my stressed out soul needed at this moment. But there it is, tteokbokki, or Korean rice cakes. I really hope you all try to make this. Thank you so much for watching. If you liked this video, give it a like. If you loved it, subscribe and hit that notification bell because I put out new videos every Thursday. Thank you again, and until next time, happy cooking, and I wish everyone a peaceful day. Oh yeah. Spicy, sweet. Perfect.